The hearing room wasn't big, but it felt compressed. Every chair filled, every wall lined with aides, staffers, and a handful of credentialed reporters lucky enough to get inside. Phones were off, cameras weren't allowed, the air conditioning hummed too loudly, but no one complained. The room had the hush of something unspoken. This wasn't a televised circus. It was supposed to be a quiet, procedural ethics review. Low-key, internal, the kind of thing Congress liked to pretend was about integrity, not optics. But Washington was never just what it claimed to be. Representative Jasmine Crockett sat at the far end of the long oak table, unmoving. Her gray suit was sharp but unflashy. Her binder was closed, her fingers loosely woven. Her expression gave nothing away, until the chair taped the mic. Next, Representative Glenn Norwood announced, his voice worn and even, "We'll move to a submission from a third-party participant and non-member, but approved by committee vote." That was rare, and the tension in the room thickened. "Miss Ivanka Trump," Norwood said, glancing up. A subtle shift in posture swept the table. Ivanka stood at the back, heels clicking against the polished floor, a soft rhythm of quiet authority. She wore a beige blouse, a black pencil skirt, and the kind of confidence that had been professionally groomed for decades. Every hair was in place, not a file in her hand. She didn't need one. She reached the podium and adjusted the mic. "Good afternoon," she began, voice polished, almost melodic. "Thank you for the opportunity to speak." People nodded, out of reflex if not respect. "I want to begin," she continued, "by acknowledging the seriousness of ethical integrity in public service. It's not partisan, it's foundational." She let that sink in before lowering her voice a touch. "And it's with that in mind that I express concern regarding Representative Jasmine Crockett." The words were delivered cleanly, almost softly, but the impact was immediate. Chairs shifted, eyes turned. Ivanka didn't look at Jasmine once. "In recent months," she said, "Representative Crockett has demonstrated a pattern of recklessness, performative aggression, and language unbecoming of this chamber." The room inhaled. Jasmine didn't blink. "Passion is important, but so is restraint. And frankly, I do not believe Representative Crockett reflects the kind of measured leadership we should expect." Representative Caleb Dwyer of Idaho sat forward slightly, interested now. Others glanced at each other, unsure. Ivanka continued, measured and exact. "This is not about partisanship. This is about fitness, about whether her behavior reinforces or erodes public trust." She stepped back, thanked the committee, and walked to her seat without looking once at the woman she just tried to bury. And still, Jasmine hadn't moved. Then her eyes lifted. Chairman Norwood raised a brow. "Chairman," she said, voice calm. "May I respond?" A pause, then a nod. Jasmine rose without rush. No papers in hand, no performance, just the controlled composure of someone who already knew what the end of this moment looked like. She walked slowly to the podium. "I didn't come here to speak today," she began, "but I also didn't come here to be lied about." The words landed with weight, a few gasps, a cough near the back. "I've been in this room for 3 hours listening to people talk about ethics, transparency, and truth. Now suddenly, I'm being called unfit for office by someone who doesn't even serve in this chamber." She paused. Let the silence settle. "This isn't about ethics. This is about image control." The oldest trick in Washington: paint a black woman who doesn't whisper as aggressive, unhinged, dangerous. A few glances toward Ivanka now. She was still, but her spine was stiffer. Jasmine's voice didn't rise, it sharpened. "I speak clearly, I speak honestly. I fight for the people who put me here. And since we're questioning fitness," she reached into her blazer pocket, "I'd like to play something." She held up a cracked iPhone. "No theatrics, just certainty." "This is a voicemail I received 2 months ago from someone who knows both me and Miss Trump. It's under 45 seconds. With the committee's permission, I'd like to play it." The panel glanced toward legal counsel. A whisper, a long pause. Then Norwood gave a single nod. "Proceed." Jasmine handed the phone to the tech. A soft tap, a click. The speakers came alive. "I know she makes people nervous, but Jasmine's the real deal. She's one of the only ones up there actually fighting for people, not headlines, not donors. She's fierce. I wish more were like her." Ivanka's voice, warm, admiring, unmistakable. The room froze. When the recording ended, The silence stretched wide and deep. Jasmine didn't gloat. She didn't glance back. She simply stepped forward. That message wasn't meant for me. It was meant for someone else, but they shared it because they knew this moment would come. She looked down the line of committee members, eyes steady. You don't have to like how I speak, how I vote, how I walk into a room, but you do have to respect that I walk in, that I show up, that I don't fold when someone tosses dirt just to see if it sticks. Now the silence felt different. Conviction, reckoning. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to remind this room that truth still matters even when it's inconvenient. She turned, I yield, and she walked back to her seat. Still no one spoke, nor was pen tapped once. Then again, Representative Crockett's response is noted for the record. We'll resume the agenda. But the room wasn't ready. The mood had shifted. Something had cracked. Sheila Ransom leaned toward Jasmine. That was cold-blooded. Jasmine didn't look over. Just facts. Caleb Dwyer adjusted his collar. The clerk hesitated before typing again. No one wanted to move on, but Norwood tried. Item 8B, he began, and then Jasmine stood again. Chairman, she said, since my name was brought into this, I'd like to use my time to provide context. A nod. This time, she didn't approach the podium. She stayed in her seat. I want to walk this room through the work I've done the last 14 months. She taped her tablet, reading from a file. In March, I introduced the Urban Policing Reform Act. Bipartisan support. 3 Republican co-sponsors. Passed subcommittee unanimously. Pause. In May, I partnered with Representative Gabriel Chen on rural education equity. Targeted internet access for underfunded school districts. That passed. 2. Another beat. In July, I authored the Clean Access Corridor Plan. A lead pipe removal, federal funding, no partisan restrictions. House floor passage. Check the record. Now she looked up. You can critique my tone. You can say I make people uncomfortable, but you cannot say I don't do the work. She turned her eyes toward the back. In my district, some zip codes have worse healthcare access than rural Appalachia, and I've worked with members I've never voted with to change that, not because I wanted to or because I had to. She let the quiet stretch again. This isn't about image, it's about impact, and that a broken bar that landed differently. A shift, not explosive, but clear. Ivanka wasn't making eye contact anymore. Her hands sat open on her lap. A few aides whispered near the door. One wrote something down. One staffer mouthed damn. Jasmine continued. I didn't ask to be defended. I didn't ask to be praised. But if someone brings my name in here to score political points, then we're dragging facts in too. She set the tablet down. That's all I've got. She sat. No applause, but no one missed the weight of it. The committee broke for recess. Chairs scrapped slowly. Conversations started in hushed tones. Jasmine stayed seated. Amani, her aide, leaned in. You sure you wanna hang back? Reporters are circling. Jasmine didn't look up. Let them circle. We didn't leak the voicemail. We played it where it mattered. Outside, Ivanka walked down the hallway, alone. Her phone in hand. Her eyes lowered. By the time she reached the exit, it was too late. The voicemail had leaked. It wasn't clear how. Maybe an aide. Maybe a back-channel leak. Maybe the person who originally shared it decided today was the day. Didn't matter. The 45-second clip had already hit 3 news blogs. A strategist posted it with the caption, "This you, Ivanka?" Reporters swarmed. Miss Trump, did you leave that voicemail? Why praise Crockett privately and attack her publicly? No answers, just the fast click of heels down wet pavement. Inside, Jasmine finally stood. Amani held up her phone. It's out. Jasmine glanced at it. That's all. They walked the side hallway, quiet. As they turned a corner near the exit, they passed Representative Arthur Weissman, the oldest Republican on the panel, standing near a vending machine. He stepped forward. Representative Crockett. She stopped. We don't usually agree, he said, but today was the first time in a long time I saw someone handle a blind side without blinking. You saying that for yourself or for the record? She asked. He gave a half smile. Both. Then walked away. Amani blinked. That was weird. Jasmine shrugged. I'll take it. By the time they reached the SUV, The clip had made it to prime time. Someone had already made a split-screen Ivanka's speech beside the voicemail. No commentary needed. The facts had spoken for themselves, and Jasmine didn't have to raise her voice once. The clip was just 45 seconds long. No video, only audio. Just a voice. Ivanka's soft, reverent, and off-script. I know she makes people nervous, but Jasmine's the real deal. A broken bar. It hit the internet like a detonator. By the time Jasmine's SUV turned onto Pennsylvania Avenue, Political X was in full combustion mode. Clips of the voicemail played over images of Ivanka standing at the podium hours earlier, accusing Jasmine of recklessness. The caption "This you?" became a trending phrase. By nightfall, it was on t-shirts. Cable news ran with it before fact-checkers even caught up. One Chiron on MSNBC read, "Trump praised Crockett in private, slams her in public." Leaked audio rattles ethics hearing. Fox cut in with a different spin. Crockett leaks private message in ethics hearing, a political stunt or power play. But no one could ignore what it was. A moment, a shift, a flash of clarity in the middle of Washington's usual fog. And the woman at the center of it, she was at home, on her second glass of lemon water, curled up on her couch in sweats, eyes half closed as Imani scrolled through updates on her phone. "They're calling it the A voicemail verdict," Imani said, amused. Jasmine shook her head. "I didn't plan that." "You didn't have to." Another notification buzzed. Imani held it up. "It's on the morning lineup, CNN, The View, even Good Morning America. They're calling asking for statements." Jasmine raised a brow. "I said my piece." A beat. "Are we leaking anything else?" Imani asked. "No," Jasmine said firmly. "We already won. Don't need to spike the ball." But outside they're quiet. The gears of political media never stopped grinding. Trump Tower, Midtown Manhattan, 11:32 p.m. Ivanka sat at the head of a long, glass table in a corner suite, her phone face down, a legal pad in front of her. A comms advisor from the RNC paced behind her, rattling off options like damage control came in checklists. You can say the voicemail was from months ago, sent before Crockett's recent behavior, or you can pivot and say it was taken out of context, that it was a private moment not meant for public consumption. Ivanka didn't respond. Another advisor chimed in. "We can also question the ethics of releasing private communications during an official hearing." Flip the frame. Accuse her of grandstanding. Ivanka's nails tapped the table, slow and mechanical. "She didn't release it," she said finally. "She played it in the room, so we call that performative." The first one offered. "She didn't yell. She didn't even look at me." That quieted them. Ivanka looked toward the window. The city glimmered like it always did, indifferent. She stood abruptly. "I'm not making a statement, but if we don't control the narrative." She already controlled it, Ivanka snapped, then immediately softened. "We'll wait. Let it breathe." She walked out without another word, leaving them scrambling. Washington Post. A next morning headline. Greater than the voice that shattered the room, how Jasmine Crockett turned a hearing into a moment of reckoning. The article was blunt. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't accuse her opponent. She pressed play. And somehow, that did more damage than 1,000 rebuttals ever could. Other publications followed suit. The Atlantic called it the politics of precision. Slate labeled it masterclass in restraint. Vox dubbed it the Crockett Doctrine. Show receipts, then leave. And in D.C., what people didn't say out loud mattered even more. Capitol Hill. A Friday afternoon, Representative Colleen Boy lingered outside the Rayburn building, her aide pacing beside her. She was still unsettled. 2 days earlier, she'd considered Jasmine abrasive, too hot for coalition building, too brash for strategy. Now, she wasn't sure anymore. "She didn't even attack," Colleen murmured. "No," her aide replied. "She just reminded everyone she was prepared." Colleen exhaled, long and thoughtful. "I think I'm gonna reach out," said a meeting. That was how shifts started in D.C.A. Not with declarations, but with calendar holds. White House. A senior staff meeting room. A printed report lay on the desk. Impact analysis. Crockett hearing followed. A swing voter perceptions. In big red letters, a summary. Approval +4 among independents. Mention rate +18% in black women ages 30-55. President not present, but his communications director circled one line. Note: female voters perceive Crockett's demeanor as a professional under fire and a contrast to political dramatics. The takeaway was already spreading. Jasmine hadn't won just by being right. She'd won by refusing to play their game. Somewhere in Georgetown a night, a dinner party buzzed with conversation and Cabernet. At one end of the table, a retired senator leaned toward his old colleague. "You see that hearing thing?" "Which one?" "The Crockett one." Ivanka walked into that hearing thinking she could slap a narrative on someone. Jasmine just sat there, waited, then dropped the truth like a hammer. The second man chuckled. "That wasn't a hammer, that was a scalpel." The room laughed. Even in retirement, they still loved a clean kill. Crockett's office a Saturday. A man walked in with the new mail. Most of it filtered, but one envelope was handwritten. Texas postmark, no return address. She opened it cautiously. Inside was a card, typed in all caps. She kept her cool. "I lost mine, thank you." No signature. Amani held it out. Jasmine looked at it and smiled faintly. Somebody having a come-to-Jesus moment. Amani nodded. Probably not the last. Meanwhile, at Fox News, a segment aired titled, "The Ethics of Leaks, Should Private Voicemails Be Used in Congressional Hearings?" The panel twisted the narrative. "This sets a dangerous precedent," one guest warned. "Weaponizing private correspondencia, it's a new low." But even some conservative voices on social media weren't buying it. A viral response post read, "Greater than it wasn't the voicemail that made it powerful, it was the silence after." And the fact that Crockett didn't even need to raise her voice to end the argument. Monday morning back on the Hill, Representative Arthur Weissman stopped in the corridor. He watched as Jasmine passed by, flanked by staff. Calm, efficient, unbothered, he gave a tiny nod. She saw him, returned it. That was it. But in Washington, a nod like that was the equivalent of a standing ovation. Inside a GOP strategy meeting, a closed door, a young strategist presented slides on Gen Z engagement. He clicked to a screen titled, "Perception Bombs, What Not to Do." On it was a split screen. Ivanka at the podium beside the audio waveform of her voicemail. He didn't even explain. Everyone got it. Lesson learned. Crockett's appearance on The View a Wednesday. Whoopi leaned forward. "So let me ask you straight. You didn't know she was going to be at that hearing, right?" Jasmine smiled. "Not a clue. But I've been black and female in politics long enough to know a setup when I see one." The crowd applauded. Sonny Hostin leaned in. "And the voicemail, how long were you holding it?" Jasmine tilted her head. "Long enough to know it would matter." Whoopi grinned. "That's cold." Jasmine sipped her tea. "That's Congress." Ending moment. A Thursday, late night. Jasmine's office. The halls were quiet. Staff had gone home. The Capitol lit up against the dark sky. Jasmine sat at her desk, not working, just a broken bar thinking. Amani appeared at the door. "You good?" Jasmine nodded. "Yeah, just letting it all settle. You know you shifted the whole week, right?" "Hell, maybe the whole cycle." Jasmine didn't respond. She stared at the closed binder on her desk. Then finally, "They tried to write the version of me they could control. I just reminded them I already have the pen." Amani grinned. "Keep writing." Fade out. Some fights end with shouting, others end with silence. The powerful kind are the kind you earn by standing still while the world tries to spin you off your axis. Jasmine Crockett didn't throw a punch, she threw the truth, and it landed like a thunderclap in a town that forgets what honesty sounds like. The voicemail stopped playing. The room was ice. Ivanka Trump's face was still, but her hands betrayed her knuckles white against the mahogany table, fingers trembling slightly as she gripped her pen like it was a lifeline. Around the horseshoe of the ethics panel, silence choked the air, broken only by the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Chairwoman Lister's voice was gravelly when it finally came. "Miss Trump, a broken bar. Would you like to respond to what we just heard?" Ivanka took a moment. Too long. Her confidence had calcified. She looked not at Jasmine, not at the committee, but at the small nameplate in front of her. That recording a broken bar was taken without consent. Jasmine didn't blink. State of New York law only requires one-party consent, and I was the party. "You remember the call?" Ivanka, you were frustrated. You thought your name and your father's name would silence people like me. But your mistake wasn't just underestimating me. It was forgetting I record everything. The panel shuffled us, some leaning forward now, others checking their notes. The spell was breaking, but not in Ivanka's favor. Congressman Rawls, a Republican from Georgia, cleared his throat. Let's keep it professional. This committee was convened to investigate misuse of influence, not settle personal vendettas. Jasmine smiled thinly. With respect, Congressman, that was misuse of influence. A private citizen, yes. A high-profile Onia threatened a sitting member of Congress in an attempt to prevent them from speaking publicly on national ethics violations. That's not a vendetta. That's a pattern. The chairwoman nodded slowly. She has a point. Ivanka exhaled sharply, speaking through clenched teeth. You're twisting everything. That call was about protecting my children, my family. You were about to go on MSNBC and imply my father arranged federal contracts for Kushner Holdings. That wasn't true. Jasmine's eyes narrowed, and yet a broken bar. Months later, the Department of Justice found the exact memo I referenced. You want to know the real reason this is hitting a nerve? She leaned forward. Because your brand only works when you pretend you're not part of the mess. Now Ivanka snapped. You don't know anything about my brand. No. Jasmine cut in. I know exactly what it is. You traffic in softness, white femininity, fragility, curated silence. You weaponize not knowing. But not today. The room went dead still again. Across the table, someone whispered under their breath, Jesus. C-SPAN's red recording light flickered on. Though it was technically a closed-door session, portions of the hearing were being streamed out in real time due to a procedural motion filed earlier that morning, an obscure clause that Jasmine had quietly leveraged. Most didn't even realize the feed was active until it hit Twitter. Within 6 minutes, a clip of the voicemail had gone viral. #Ivanka exposed #ethics on tape #Crockett versus Trump. Cable news scrambled. MSNBC cut into a scheduled segment on inflation to play the recording. Fox News went silent for 12 minutes before pivoting to a segment on the war on wealth. CNN aired a split screen of the hearing and a stunt anchor blinking into the camera. Back in the room, Ivanka was unraveling. You think you've won something? She hissed across the table. You don't get it. This will make me more powerful. They'll say I was attacked. They'll call you angry, combative. Yeah, let them. Jasmine replied. Because the receipts always outlive the spin. Another murmur. Then, a motion from Chairwoman Listor. At this time, I'm calling for a formal recess pending review of the audio evidence. Congresswoman Crockett, you are excused. Miss Trump, you will remain for debriefing. Jasmine stood calmly. No fist pump, no smug grin, just a slow turn toward the double doors. As she walked out, Ivanka watched, her eyes hard, breathing shallow. EXT, Capitol Hill. Minutes later, sunlight struck Jasmine Crockett's face as she stepped onto the Capitol steps. Flash bulbs exploded instantly. Reporters swarmed. Congresswoman Crockett, was that voicemail authentic? Do you believe Ivanka Trump should be criminally investigated? What does this mean for the 2026 ethics reform bill? She held up a hand. No mic, no notes, just her voice. I didn't come here to fight billionaires. I came here to make sure billionaires don't get to fight in the shadows. Click, flash, viral. INT, Mar-a-Lago. A private study. Same time. Donald Trump sat motionless, eyes locked on the giant TV screen, replaying his daughter's voice. She's dangerous if she keeps talking. You know what I mean. Someone needs to pull her aside. He reached for the remote and turned the volume down slowly, carefully, his knuckles cracking. Then he turned to an aide. Get Barron on the phone. The aide blinked. Sir, you heard me. It's time we stop underestimating the woman who recorded everything. INT, MSNBC Studios. Night, a panel of legal experts reviewed the ethics tape. One commentator, Rachel Maddow, paused, rewound, then said slowly, this isn't just about Jasmine Crockett and Ivanka Trump. This is a mirror of how power moves, of who's allowed to wield it silently, and who has to shout just to be heard. INT, Jasmine Crockett's apartment. Night, alone in her kitchen, Jasmine poured a glass of wine. Her phone buzzed. A text from her comms director, 2.8 million views. 3 hours. #ethics on tape is trending globally. She took a sip, exhaled, then hit play on the next voicemail in her folder.